All right, guys. Hey, today we have the privilege of having Michael Pedone. He is the CEO of Sales Buzz. Now, we are a big fan of Michael's. We've been reusing his content, his blog content, and sharing it on our site. So we love his info that he's going to share today. And so, Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in coaching and training.
Hey everybody, nice to meet you guys. So so a little bit about myself. I'm the founder of salesbuzz.com, and how I got involved in this. First of all, I've been a straight commission sales rep for, I hate to even say this now, over 25 years. And how I got involved in helping others learn how to sell. Back in 2007, I had a company that I ended up selling. It was a marketing company. And so now that I had a little bit of extra cash, I decided what I wanted to do next for my next venture. And I had a couple business ideas, but the one I kept coming back to is listen, I know exactly what it feels like to have the phone seem like a 25-pound weight and you just don't want to pick it up anymore. And I knew exactly what I changed and the things I did differently that allowed me to start my first company, which I ended up selling in like I said, in 2007. So what I decided to do is I was like, you know what? I know I have this process. I know I have this sales system that works no matter what industry you're in, because every industry I was in before I started my own business, I would follow my own system, and I was very successful at it. And so then I said, you know what? I want to go ahead and start a company where I can help others. But I also wanted to do it to where in a way that allowed me the freedom that I personally needed. And so instead of, I looked into like purchasing a franchise like a Dale Carnegie and a Sandler and all that stuff. One, I wasn't really too thrilled with the content that they had for phone sales. Great companies, but for phone sales, they were kind of, it was like an afterthought. And two, I didn't want to be stuck in a geographical location where I could only sell to the people that lived within driving distance. So that's why I decided to do, online sales training. So now I could train everybody around the world, give them what they need at a fraction of the cost. And so that's the long answer to that question.
Cool. Awesome.
That's how I got started.
Awesome. Hey, do you like my mug?
Absolutely, man. Glengarry Glen Ross, one of the greatest sales movies ever.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your markets, who you're coaching, what markets do you coach? What do your clients look like?
Our clients are, primarily USA to Canada. If I want to get down to the nitty gritty KPIs, right? So if I'm going to make a cold call to somebody, or if I'm going to contact somebody, USA, Canada, business to business. Preferably, I have a lot of individuals that'll come and just, register for the course on their own. But if I'm going to be making that outreach, I want to find companies that have anywhere from, 5 to 500 sales reps.
I see.
So that's kind of like, outbound sales reps. But I don't want to ignore those individuals that need help. So we do have a very easy, affordable system for somebody to sign on and get the help that they need on their own. But I think the reason why I'm answering this way is I think anybody that's listening, it's really important if you're going to be making outbound calls. I don't care if you're a real estate agent all the way to, an SDR, making outbound sales calls. You have to know who your target audience is and who's going to, what efforts and who to chase that's going to give you the best ROI, right? So on the business side, I have it set for even individuals where they can get the training they need. But if I'm going to pick up the phone and contact an organization, they have to meet a certain, criteria for me to go after.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So you touched a little bit on knowing who your market is and who your target market is. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that? About knowing who your target market is?
Oh, I lost you there for a second. Are you back?
Yeah, we're live.
Yep.
Did you hear what I said?
There we go.
Okay, all right.
I said you touched a little bit on and then you froze out.
Got it. So you touched a little bit on knowing your target market, and can you go into a little bit more detail about that? How is that important?
One of the biggest things with salespeople, one of the reasons why they get call reluctance and they get frustrated is because they're not having enough wins, right? So the bottom line is their win rate is below their level of expectations of what they're trying to get to. And when that happens too long, call reluctance sets in, frustration sets in. And you would think it'd be obvious, but it's really not in the sales world, is one of the biggest challenges that sales people have is to make sure that they go after the right people. The problem is they think that everybody's a prospect. And that's not the case. You really have to narrow in who is most likely, even if they're not raising their hand. First of all, let me just say this. The definition of a cold call is contacting any prospect that is not currently raising your hand, right? If they're not raising their hand, it's a cold call. But even if it's a warm lead where they've filled out a form or they kind of showed some interest, that doesn't mean they're an automatic prospect ready to buy. So you have to be able to know whether it's a cold call or a warm lead, how to quickly look and see, do they have certain what I would call KPIs, what I call it key prospecting indicators. They have certain 2 or 3 pieces of data information that you can go, you know what, this fits my target audience, I should contact them. Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels. It's almost like, to me, prospecting was like one of the things I hated about sales when I first got into it, because I was a strong closer, but I hated to prospect. And it was because my idea of prospecting was just going door to door, and in that sense, or opening the phone book. And I had this great mentor of mine who taught me how to analyze and look for certain key things. If a prospect had these key things, those are the ones to go after. And it's going to vary depending on industry that you're in. But once you go after those, you have such a higher success that even when you hear no a couple of times, it doesn't bother you, because instead of having to make 1,000 contacts, you might only have to make 10 before you set an appointment. And then that's a huge switch. And now you got that momentum just keeps rolling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So you talked about call reluctance. How does somebody stay motivated? What can they use, or what kind of mindset do they need to get in to help with that call reluctance, or to stay motivated?
Hey, listen, the secret to overcoming call reluctance is not mindset. That's the thing. There's so many people out there that are in my industry that'll try to teach motivation tactics and things of that nature. And the issue is is you can only step in the ring and get punched in the face so many times. Everybody's going to have a breaking point. The way you overcome call reluctance is you have to solve the real root of the problem. You're having call reluctance because you're getting rejected at a high level. That's why call reluctance happens. And what you have to realize is what's the reason why you're getting rejected. See, a lot of times people are going to tell you that, well, that's just part of sales. You have to learn to overcome it. You have to stay in the game long enough. You just have to keep going. And so, like I said, you're going to have some people that have certain amount of gas in a tank that can go so far. Other people are going to have a bigger tank, they can go a little farther. But eventually, if they don't fix the root problem, they're still going to crash and burn. And so you have to have the real secret to call reluctance is mapping out the sales call and having the right person show you the right process, so you know exactly what to say, when to say, how to say it, to where you get the results that you need. And so when you can shrink, again, just using those round numbers, instead of getting 1,000 rejections, maybe you only get 100, but you also got 10 wins out of that. And now you're golden. Rather, when you only had 1 win out of 1,000, that's just too big of a spread for anybody.
Okay, so tell us some of those most common problems then. So what are those most common problems that you see?
So one, sales reps don't know who their target audience is. They think that if they have a lead in front of them, they should be able to pick it up and set an appointment or close a deal. You have to understand something. As a sales rep, your job is not to close every lead you come across. That's not your job. Your job is to close as many qualified prospects as fast as possible. That's a big difference in mindset right there. So if we want to go back to mindset, start with that, right? So you have to understand that it's not my job to close every lead. I got to close every lead that's qualified. And so when you start with that perception and what your objective is, you can start with, let's build my list of pre-qualified leads first. And that goes back to the KPIs we talked about. Like for me, for example, if I'm looking in my lead list, whether I have inbound leads or whether I'm going to do cold calling and use LinkedIn or whatever to build a list, again, do they sell a B2B service, for example? Are they in Canada, US? Does their company size have this? Now, what the title of that person I'm calling? Those are just like the basics. And if I have that, and by the way, I don't need to spend 10 minutes a lead looking for that stuff. Once you know what to look for, you should be able to get that data in today's world with the internet in 2 minutes or less. Anything longer than that, that means you're probably suffering from call reluctance and you're using the research as a mask, right? So you need to know how to identify who your target audience is, build that list, and now you have to have a sales system in place where before you pick up the phone, I know, me personally, before I pick up the phone, I know exactly what I'm going to say. I know what the first 3 questions are going to be. I know what I'm going to do if the gatekeeper answers, if I get voicemail, or if I get prospect. I have all this mapped out, even though, let me back up for a second. I'm not a believer in sales scripts. I'm a believer in sales playbooks. And even though I get paid to write these and help people and train them, I still have my own playbook and I have it next to me when I'm making my calls. Now, the difference is I know it like the back of my hand, but I have it there as a quick reference. But I also don't make it sound like a script. I mean, every Oscar-winning actor all had a script, but they didn't make it sound like a script. So the whole process is know your KPIs, know what you're going to say, and then you got to execute.
And so what are those KPIs again? That stands for what? Key what?
The KPIs for me, it's my own acronym. I call it key prospecting indicators. Other people use it as key performance indicators, things of that nature. But I call it internally, key prospecting indicators. What do they have? Here's the thing: a lead. When you have a lead, you want to see, do they have the basic criteria to be pre-qualified as a suspect, somebody worth at least reaching out to? You have to know what those are, and then build that list of those. And then out of that list, now you want to attack it, but you have to know what to say when you're calling them. And you don't want to be a Captain Wing it and just pick up the phone and, as they answer the phone, you figuring out on the spot what you're going to say. You want to know that stuff ahead of time.
So you want to plan for that call before you don't just want to go in and call. You want to plan for that call and have that playbook, like you said, right?
Yeah, and the thing is this, there's a lot of, somebody wrote a book a couple of years ago about how they built this large CRM company because they were emailing a bunch of prospects, and things of that nature. And that worked for them. But then the problem is everybody that read that book started emailing the crap out of their database, right? They were doing 10,000 emails a week or whatever, something silly. And what ended up happening is they were expecting a flood of deals to come in. That didn't work. And then so after 6 months of that nonsense, now everybody's going, well, you have to personalize your email and things of that nature. But the advice they're giving is do research on their LinkedIn, find out about their background. All that's garbage as far as I'm concerned. You want to know how to get an email response or how to get a voicemail response or how to get a response when you call that prospect. You have to know what are the key problems that they are going to have in order for them to be interested in your product or service. I don't care if you sell commercial real estate, if you sell software, whatever it is. Your business is only in business because your solution solves specific problems to specific people. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So instead of trying to research about where, LinkedIn and what their family activities are, what their interests are and all that, and try to butter them up and do that stupid rapport building up front, I have much more success calling a director out of the blue. And instead of me saying, hi, my name is Michael Pedone and I do sales training, I like to get on your calendar for next week, how is Tuesday or Wednesday, which is the stupid common, sales script that's out there. I'll call them and I'll do an introduction, go, hey, this is Michael Pedone with salesbuzz.com. Listen, the reason for my call, I specialize in helping outbound sales teams overcome call reluctance. And if I caught you at a good time, I'd like to ask you just a few quick questions to see if what we have to offer might be of some help to you. Would that be okay? Now, what sales director says no to that?
Right.
Very few, right? Because I'm leading with the call reluctance, because if they have a team of 5, 10, 15, or 100, chances are they have quite a few that are call reluctant. But if I call and said I do sales training, yeah, no, we're all set, thanks. We do internal.
Right.
See the difference?
Yes, a huge difference, Michael. That is awesome stuff right there. So tell us a little bit more. You talked about 3 questions that you're going to ask somebody. Is that one of the questions, or can you ask some questions, or can you give us some of those questions you might ask?
So this is the thing. It's not the questions specifically, because the questions are going to change based on your vertical, your industry.
Sure.
But what's not going to change is the intent of each question. That's the difference. So for example, when I'm teaching a class, I'm going to teach them the roadmap, the sales roadmap. So for example, the opener that I did, when I just said I did my introduction, I say I help outbound sales teams overcome call reluctance, blah, blah, blah. That opener has 2 objectives. The first objective is I got to pique their interest with how the problem I solve. And then notice I gained permission to continue the call. That's my second objective. So that's the first question right then and there, right? Where I go, and if I caught you at a good time, I'd like to ask you a few questions just to see if what we have to offer might be of some help to you. Would that be okay? And then notice how that's the first question, but notice how I did it right after I'm piquing interest. So I'm dangling that carrot. They're like, okay, I'll bite. What do you got? That's my first question. I know that before I even picked up the phone. But now the difference is this. See, the old way is you call, you get them on the phone, and then you try to establish control right away by asking them, a very controlling question. And the problem is this, especially if you're calling decision makers, a lot of them know that game, and so they're resistant. And even if they start answering some of the questions you had lined up after that, they're holding back. You can almost hear the tension, over the phone. Does that make sense? So they
Yeah.
might be answering your question, but it's like short one-word answers, and it's like you're dragging them uphill. But with me, when I pique interest first and then I gain that permission next, it's like they're going, okay, sure. I mean, I use this example. The old way is like you're knocking on the door and you say, I have a warrant, I need to come in. And so they're going to be resistant, but they might let you in for a few seconds. My way, it's like you're a new neighbor and I showed up with a brand new cake, right? I'm like, hey, just want to get to know you. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure, come on in. It's totally different mentality. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So let's go over a couple things. So how can a sales rep handle rejection? Because let's face it, one of the big things that salespeople fear is that rejection that they have. And I know there's other problems that are associated with that you have to fix, but I'm just talking about a mindset type of thing. So if a sales rep has a bad call, or if they're timid to make phone calls, or if they're just timid to get started, they just don't know, they're just scared to pick up that phone and call. What can they do to help with handling rejection?
Okay, so the first thing, it's going to depend on where they are in the stage of their career. So if we're looking at somebody that's new, that's getting involved, they really have to be able to, actually the answer is going to be the same for everybody, because the main problem why you're getting rejection and all that fear is because you're not using the right formula. See, this is a critical piece. I'm glad you asked this question, because this is a critical piece, because my answer is going to be different than everybody else that's out there. Everybody else is going to tell you have to be mentally tough. You have to feed your brain with positive quotes. You just have to blah, blah, blah. And there's a silver lining of truth to that. But the real root cause of the problem is you have to know before you pick up the phone, you have to be able to visually see that entire map and each step of it. It's just a path. And the problem is with when you're struggling with call reluctance or your fear of that phone, it's because you don't know what the path is. You're just being thrown into the wilderness, and there's a bunch of wolves out there. But if you know where the path is and where the safe path is and how to execute it, you eliminate all of that. So it really does start with know who your target audience is. Who is most likely to buy? Why would they want to buy? What problems does your product or service solve? And then you have to go, okay, well, how do I reach out to them? How do I pique their interest? And then use a little technique like I shared with you, where you're gaining permission instead of being dominant and trying to take the permission to continue the call. And then once you get past that, you have to know what the next steps are. Once you do that, you're going to start to get a lot less resistance. Even if you do get a no, you're going to realize that you pre-qualified them early. They really weren't a good fit, even though just because they have KPIs that qualify them to be a suspect, not all suspects are the right person. So even if you start to get no's up front a little bit, you're going to realize you did your job. The difference is this: most people are taught that sales is high rejection and you just have to overcome it, and you just have to be mentally strong. And again, I think there's a silver lining of truth to that, but the real root cause of the problem is you're creating your own problem by not knowing how to execute the sales call. So therefore you're failing. So rather than just trying to have thick skin and just hang in the game, I mean, if you don't fix the root problem, you're going to have a career of failing and being frustrated. Who wants that? I don't.
Right. So you're not a believer in any mindset type of stuff. I've seen some sales coaches, they get their team psyched up. Some guys are hitting a gong, getting everybody ready, getting high motivation. Let's go. You're not a big believer in that rah kind of stuff. It sounds like you're a believer in being very accurate with a playbook, a formula for success. And if you prepare ahead of time and have those with your target audience as well, if you have those things in front of you, you're going to have more successes than failures, and that's going to take care of the call reluctance itself. Is that right?
That's exactly right. But here's the thing. You have to understand, as a straight commission sales rep for the past 25 years, I grew up in that. I cut my teeth in those boiler rooms that, where the rah and the gong and all that stuff is. The problem is it gets old.
Yeah.
Eventually you fail. Now, I think there's a place for that, and it's great. Listen, when you can combine the two, when you have the right strategy and then you have the right management that is doing the motivation to keep things going, now you have a real, now you have a culture of success formula there. But I'm talking about as an individual sales rep, you can have all that rah-rah motivation. Eventually it's going to fade. You're going to start doubting if you're in the right industry. You start looking for another job. And then if you do leave, you go somewhere else. And at first it seems great, but eventually you're right back where, you can't run from yourself. And that's why it's so important. You have to learn from somebody that has that. You have to find people that have already achieved the level of success that you're after and then learn from them. And I think that's going to be key. Or, you cut your teeth and you keep making mistakes. But what you do is this, is if you're making a mistake, you have to not blame the economy or the pricing or your competitors or whatever. You have to look internally and go, okay, I'm getting these negative results over and over again. Why? What's the root cause? What am I saying to, and how am I saying it, and where am I saying it that's causing that kind of reaction? And that's what I did a lot of times to build this process out, is instead of me trying, when I got an objection, and I was getting it quite often, instead of having a rebuttal to overcome that objection, I was really good at that, by the way. I was a very strong, high-pressure closer. But after a while, I'm like, wait, there's got to be an easier way. And because I want reorders too, and I don't want to force somebody to buy. And so I was like, well, what am I doing ahead of time that's causing this negative reaction? Or what can I do 2 or 3 steps ahead of time to avoid that from even happening? And so when I changed that mentality and I remapped my sales process, rather than just trying to hurry up and get to the close and then strong arm them into buying, it was like I wanted to walk hand in hand with them. And if we're a good fit, the logical scenario was going to be that they wanted to buy. Or what's the word I want to look for? It escapes me at the moment. But the point is this, is that it was more of, sure, consultative, that's fine. But the problem with the reason why I'm hesitating on the consultative term is sometimes salespeople get the mentality of being more too consultative, and they're not. You have to understand the end game. The end game, so you have to close it, but they have to be the right fit. And so when you have that mentality, you know how to walk them down the path and not force them down the path. You start generating more business, and then call reluctance isn't even an issue because you're making bank.
Right. That makes so sense. So you talked about objections and how to handle objections. Or you talked about not handle objections, avoid objections. So that's a total different thing. You're talking about when you have an objection, most people, there's tons of ways to handle objections. Everybody talks about it, but what you're talking about is to avoid them altogether. So can you tell us how you might do that? How salespeople might do that?
Sure. So it depends. Like, what's the number one objection your people get that contact you? What is it?
Have to talk to my spouse.
Okay. All right. So here's the deal. If you know that's a big objection, right? Why are you waiting to the end first of all, when somebody gives you an objection, we'll take that one for an example, right? But when somebody gives you an objection, there's only 2 options. They're either telling the truth or they're lying, correct?
Right. That's it.
All right. They're either telling. So when you look at it from that standpoint, okay, they're either telling the truth or they're lying. So now, if you're selling to individuals or to where they have a spouse and things of that nature, or even if you're selling to business where they may have somebody else to get involved in, first of all, they might be able to make the decision, but maybe you didn't get problem recognition. You're not hitting the pain points, hot buttons, and they don't want to, they're just using it as a blow off or a stall. That's one option. The other option is they really could have to get with somebody else. So the problem is this, is if you're speaking with somebody and they say, well, I have to get with somebody else, and you don't question that, if they're lying, you might not ever get them on the phone again. If they say they have to speak to somebody else and they're telling the truth, but you're pressing them on that, you could piss them off, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's the problem sales reps are in. And so why not just do this early on? If you know that that's going to be a common objection that you get, let's find out early if it's truth or not. So what I do is way before I even do a presentation, once I got problem recognition, we identified a problem I want to help solve, I'm going to ask them, listen, if I had a solution to help solve this, other than yourself, who else might be involved in the decision-making process? Most people will have a knee-jerk reaction and say, it's just me. And so what I do at that, I labeled it the fast-forward technique. You ready? So when I ask the question, other than yourself, who else might be involved in the decision-making process on something like this, if I had a solution to help you solve X, Y, Z, it would be my decision. I just go, okay, so assume for a moment then you end up liking what is it we have to offer. And let's say you decide you want to move forward with it. What happens next? Where do we go from there? Now, if he comes back and goes, well, I got to check with my spouse, I know that's real. First of all, there's another person that needs to be involved. Because remember, the timing is critical, because I did my introduction, I gained permission, I got problem recognition. So we agree that there's a problem here. And now what's the natural instinct that somebody wants to do once they recognize a problem? They want to know how to solve it. So I have some cards to me because they want to hear how my solution is. So I have some lead room to ask a question. That's why now I'm going to pepper in the question on who's the decision maker. And if they said it was them, I ask my fast forward technique. And if they go, well, if I like it, I just move forward with it, or I just pull the trigger, I know he's the real decision maker. Well, guess what? If he said that and I moved on, when I go for a close, he can't come back and say I have to check with somebody else now because I double confirmed early on. And he's going to remember that. And so that chess piece is off the table now. You follow me?
Absolutely.
But if he did say he was the decision maker, and then I ran the fast forward technique, goes, well, if I really like it, I just got to get so-and-so involved. Now I know that's going to be a little bit more legitimate. And now I'm going to have to make the determination of, do I pepper in finding out why that person is not involved in the conference call right now? One of the other questions I might ask is, just out of curiosity, does he or she know that you're looking into this, or are we just kind of taking the bull by the horns and we might blindside them a little bit? If they don't know that they're looking into that, I'm going to stop the process and go, listen, I think I could love to help you, especially now that I have a pain point of theirs. I can push that button again, and I might have a solution for it. But I think it's going to be in everybody's best interest if I explain it once to both of you. So I don't know if you can get them on the phone now, or if you want to set up a time for us to call back. How would you recommend we do that? And it's like I'm giving them. It almost feels like they're in control because I'm giving them permission. And they're like, that makes sense. Yeah, all right, let's set up a call with both of us. And now I got both people, and now I can go ahead and do the presentation and win that deal. Because in that scenario, there was really two people that needed to be involved.
Right. Love it. Let's talk about the money objection. Mm-hmm. Can you how can people use, well, I don't know if I can afford that, or the money objection? That's a common one. That's probably the most.
Again, it's the same thing. You're going to have to, most people hit the money at the end, and now it's an objection. I talk about money early on, but I got to make sure I know who I'm speaking with first. I'm not going to speak money to somebody that can't pull the trigger. So again, this is the whole point of the biggest problem with sales advice and sales training. One, I think it's a lot of repackaged stuff, that in a new way, but it's the same bad results. But you have to know how to walk down the process. And if you know how to ask certain questions at the right time, just like the example I gave you with them not being the decision maker, or maybe they are, maybe they're not, I addressed it early. Same thing with the price, you're going to have to know when to ask that question at the right time. And there's lots of other objections that you're going to get too. And again, if you know how to do the qualifying right and get them to open up and have that conversation, a lot of those objections, go by the wayside towards the end. And that's all the stuff that that we teach on how to execute those steps, in that. And listen, I'd love for your audience to come on over and just sign up. That'd be great. But if not, find somebody that knows how to do this stuff and get them as a mentor and work it out. But the biggest problem is you can keep reading motivational books all you want, but if you don't fix the root of the problem, there's going to be issues down the road.
Yeah. Hey, that's great info. You're talking about just having that formula to set it up to take away of those objections in the beginning, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you want to do it in a conversational way.
Right.
I mean, the bottom line is this: when I call somebody, here's my mental attitude before I pick up the phone, and this is my real secret sauce. Because you were asking earlier, like, what's the mental state? And I go back to what I said earlier, that you have to know the formula first and how to execute that, because you can have all this mental preparation but it's going to fail eventually if you don't have the two. So once I know what the formula is, before I pick up every phone, I have a sincere, genuine interest in seeing if I can help the other person on the other end of that phone. That's my, and here's the thing, I didn't always, there were some companies that I worked for in the past that it was like that chapter in my life was getting ready, like I needed to go to a different chapter. I needed to get out of that company or whatever. But if I was picking up the phone to the day I left that organization, I knew that the best way you're going to be successful in sales is you have to help others get what they want. The prospects you're calling, they might not always realize they have a problem. So that's why you don't just call them and data dump what you do. You have to know how to get them to have a conversation with you, ask the right questions so that they recognize a problem, and then you can go ahead and see if you can help them. But it all starts with me from the mental standpoint of they meet certain criteria of a KPI to be qualified as a suspect. Let me pick up the phone or send them an email and see if I can help them and get the conversation started. And that's my mind focus. And if you do it with that intent, you're going to win a lot more deals than you're going to lose.
Yeah, and try not to sell them, right? Because people don't like being sold, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, the old sales ways to get them on the phone, ask them a couple of probing questions, do a data dump, and then ask for the order 3 times, and then rinse, repeat. You know? And,
Yeah.
and listen, that was a formula in the '90s I started with, but you need to evolve, and
Right.
I found a much better way. Now the problem is now everybody thinks you just have to send a bunch of emails and cute little emails, and you're going to hit your quota, and it's just there's not fixing the root of the problem. I love emails. I love voicemails. I love making the phone, calling on the phone. I love using LinkedIn, but you have to use all that stuff the right way, to get a conversation going.
Makes sense. So we're 30 minutes in. I wanted to ask you one question, and this is what I try to finish with every interview. Michael, what is the one thing that you can advise, the one thing that if you wish you would have known 20 years ago, that you wish you would have known 20 years ago, that would have changed your whole career path, or the one thing that would be the most beneficial that you wish you would have known 20 years ago?
Okay, one, buy Amazon stock or at $19.
All right, let's stick with this. With what you do.
Yeah, so if there was one thing, it's a really good question. I don't think I would have changed anything of what I did, because here's the thing. My mentality was always I said this earlier, always learn from people who have already achieved the level of success that I was after. There's a lot of people that tell you can't do stuff. And there's a lot of people that want to offer you advice that aren't being successful. So I always knew early, I don't know how I knew it, it's just an instinct, whatever, but only take advice from people that have already achieved that level of success that I was after. And the success is different for everybody. It could be cash, it could be lifestyle, it could be their integrity, all that kind of stuff. I wanted to learn from those people that I wanted to aspire to be to. And I did that. And the other thing too was never make excuses on, always take accountability of if something failed. When I first got in, my very first sales job was with car sales as a straight commission car sales rep, and they would hire 20 of us at a time, and you'd be in there and you'd have a week or so to prove yourself, and it was like 18 out of those 20, by the third day they're negative Nancy's, and you can't live around them. Yet what I did was, it all starts with 2 or 3 people who are negative, then the rest of the group that's not being successful, they're like, oh yeah, it's, they're saying, yeah, it's the economy, it's our pricing, and blah, blah, blah. Yet when I look at the actual organization, there was 100 other sales reps there, and the top 10 were making a killing. So I was like, let me gravitate to that group and get away from this group. So that, kind of goes back to never make excuses, figure out why you're failing, and then figure out what you caused it to be more successful, and take advice from people who've already achieved the level of success. And I felt like I've done that. So, I would probably, I tell my kids that too. And that's where it's at. And just work hard, man. Don't expect a handout. Work hard.
Right. There's a saying, you become who you hang out with. And so the people that you hang out with, that's who you become. Now, that's in a personal life and also probably a business life. The people who you hang around with, you're going to start doing what they do, and you're going to start achieving what they achieve, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And so just like you said, you wanted to be in that group of people, that top 10 of people in that dealership. You wanted to gravitate towards them because they're the successful ones, and that's who you're going to learn from. They're going to probably have good mindset. They probably have a system. And so, that's great advice, just, gravitating to those successful people. So that was great information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Michael, I just want to say thank you for being on today. And how can people reach out to you if they want some training or advice or things like that? Can you give us some information on that?
Yeah, sure. Right over your shoulder there, salesbuzz.com. What I would probably recommend people sign. First of all, I have a free class on there that they could take on demand on how to leave voicemails that'll get prospects to you're going to get more prospects starting today if you follow that advice. So it's like a 20-minute on-demand clip. You know, I have a great blog that I post sales tips every week. You know, it's free. Just take a look at that. And if there's anything else that you need to know, you'll be able to reach me through the site on SalesBuzz or even on LinkedIn.
Awesome, Michael. Well, I know we've been we post stuff on our user group that for some of our team members do, and they post stuff. We love your stuff, so that's why we wanted to have you on. Is it okay if we have you on maybe a little later on, a couple months, and go over some more detailed stuff about phone recordings and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. You bet.
Awesome.
I'm more than happy to help.
All right, Michael. Thank you so much for being on today, and we'll go ahead and end the conference. Thank you.
All right, take care, guys. We'll see you.